Hey, what's up, you guys? Bloody Jacob here to bring you my weekly review of Game of Thrones on HBO. This week we've seen Season 6, Episode 10, which was the Season 6 finale and was called The Winds of Winter, or The Winds of Winter, however you want to say it. Finale's here, Season 6 is over. Overall, I just want to say a very good season in general. Combining everything together, I think it was superior to Season 5, at least to me anyway. And with these past two episodes especially, you just can't deny that, Battle of the Bastards was great last week, one of the most epic battles we've seen on the show so far anyway. As I said in last week's review, the only battles I think will be able to rival that are going to be the very final ones, or perhaps with Daenerys' army and Cersei's, which should be pretty interesting, but we'll see. Wow, we had a lot of developments in this episode. They managed to touch on all the characters in some really significant and meaningful ways, and it was really one of the most tightly paced episodes we've had in a while, I think. Not that Game of Thrones episodes have like a slow pace, sometimes I do, but I just think this just really flowed pretty smoothly, even with all the sometimes jumping around. I think just the way they put all these climactic moments together, I think it just worked really well in this episode. First thing I want to talk about is Cersei, who's a character I've pretty much loved to hate since Season 1. I've always appreciated her intelligence. Lena Headey's always played her really well, and of course I do want her to die eventually. I don't want her to prevail in the end overall or anything like that, but throughout most of the season I think most of us were rooting for Cersei and Jaime over the High Sparrow and the Faith, and we finally got the payoff of that here. It's really weird to be rooting for Cersei. She's a great antagonist, but we never expected to actually be on her side with anything, but most of us were, with the whole High Sparrow conflict and such. And I thought Cersei's setup here with the High Sparrow and, of course, with, the rest of the Faith and everyone who was awaiting her to, have her trial commence. I thought it was pretty genius on her part. And, some people were theorizing that Cersei would end up using the wildfire and being sort of like the Mad King, in the sense that he sort of, disregarded the people, that were being burned and killed, as a whole and such. And that sort of happened here, but I got Cersei's plan, and, when he had Marjorie in there, the High Sparrow, and of course her brother, Sir Tyrell and such, and she wasn't there, you knew she had something set up, especially when you see the Mountain, Sir Gregor, come in just to stop Tommen from going to the thing himself. Of course, Cersei would want to keep him out of harm's way with that. So I really liked the way those pieces were put together, how that came together. That was for like the first 15-20 minutes of the episode. And I was like, okay, something's going to go down here. And it did. It was actually kind of surprising for me to see Marjorie get killed off. I know a lot of people. She did have, her fans, Marjorie, Natalie Dormer and such. She did a pretty good job on the show. She is on it. But I'm actually glad, I'm glad Cersei triumphed here. And it was, in a way, satisfying to see the Sparrow and the rest of them just, quickly just get incinerated by the green flames when of course, I'm suddenly forgetting his name right now. Let me just look this up real quick. People don't get too pissed with me, please. Let's see. Yeah, Lancel. I was right, okay, you're not going to believe me, but I actually was thinking Lancel in my head, but when Lancel is lured down by the kids, and, he basically ends up getting shanked, and then he sees the path through the wildfire, and then it sets off, killing him first, and then eventually reaching the High Sparrow and everyone else in that, room and such. Again, it was just very satisfying. And then, just to really make it even a greater moment for Cersei and just for fans of the show in general, we have Cersei. She had kept, I don't remember her name, but basically, the shame, of course, we all remember her. Cersei kept her for herself, and then she basically, in a way, confesses to everything, like her relationship with Jaime and everything along those lines, as, the girl is bound there, basically just chained down. And, Cersei brings up that she did say she'd be the last face she would see before she dies, and, the girl is about to take, peace in that, saying she's ready to, go over to the other side and such, but to make it even darker and more cruel, and, as a vengeance for Cersei, she brings Sir Gregor in there, and he does God knows what with that woman before he probably ends up killing her, so... Again, really dark, and that part is probably a little bit over, but we were all pretty annoyed with that lady, and again, we're glad for Cersei here, so I did really like that. And then we had a little moment with Jaime and Walder Frey. Of course, Jaime, hanging out with him because, of course, Jaime had to help him out last week, within the past couple episodes and such with the Blackfish. Jaime sort of ends up mocking Walder Frey, which I kind of liked. He sort of points out, he just says, why do we even need you? Because they have to come and just, help them out time and time again, to swoop in and do all this for them, so why do they even have them there when they can just do all this on their own, So I did like that. And another great payoff to go along with all that while I'm talking about Walder Frey was Arya actually showing up, and we finally see the death of Walder Frey, which is, of course, something us as fans have wanted since season 3. Of course, after what happened with the Red Wedding, and Arya was definitely the right character to do it. You knew something is up when you just seen Walder Frey sitting alone, and you seen this one servant girl, approach him, and then he, of course, hits on her. You knew something was off. And, of course, Arya takes off the face, and then she ends up cutting his throat after she declares herself that she is Arya Stark, and, to look into her eyes and such. And so, yeah, another great moment there. We also had Sam. He, goes to become a Meister like he had planned. He described, last I knew that Mormont was the leader of the Night's Watch, the Lord Commander, I mean. So he has to describe the irregularities, as I said. And then, Gilly and little Sam aren't allowed, no women and children, but Sam still seems pretty eager to begin the process. So we had that. We also had a pretty good scene of Davos confronting Melisandre, of course, the Red Woman, after finding the, what he had carved for Stannis' daughter, and of course finding out that she was, burned. So that was a lot to bring up again, and then, he gets her to sort of describe what she did to Jon. And, of course, Davos wants to execute her right then and there, but Jon basically sends her to the south, and if she ever comes around again, she will be, put to death. She will be hung. And Davos promises that he'd do it himself. And, Melisandre does deserve that, even though, she brought back Jon this season. I guess it's debatable, because, of course, we all remember what happened to the daughter and such, and Melisandre earlier on in the series did come off more like a straight up villain, but as I've talked about her before, the way I see it is pretty much the way she describes. She didn't really know, she was wrong, as she said. She didn't really think, she didn't know it was going to happen that way. She didn't know that sacrificing a little girl would amount to nothing anyway. She didn't know that Stannis would just end up dying anyway and failing. So Melisandre's not really a villain. She's just heavily misguided as a character. Will we ever see Melisandre again? I don't know. I imagine we probably will, but we're going to be on the final 2 seasons now, and they're supposed to be shortened, both 7 and 8. So they definitely have to, pack her in there somehow. But I imagine we will see her again. I just don't know what's going to happen with her. Let's see. And we also had some really nice moments between Jon and Sansa. Of course, we also get Littlefinger trying to kiss Sansa again. He talks about this picture he has of him sitting on the throne with Sansa by his side. Sansa pushes him away and says that is a pretty picture. And she, of course, admits to Jon that she cannot trust Littlefinger. No one really can. And they sort of bond over the fact that Jon is still one of them, and she apologizes for not letting Jon know about what she was arranging with Littlefinger in the Vale earlier on, which again was a good scene. We also had Varys popping up in Dorne. No one knew where he was going, but he's making an alliance with Dorne. Of course, they had to come around back at King's Landing against Cersei and such. And that plays, of course, right into what the lady there is doing. Of course, Oberyn's widow. Of course, just hell-bent on, going against them and, not really bending as much as, as far as what she says anyway. I'm not really describing any of this the right way, but Varys, shown to be pulling the strings with them and making an alliance with them, which will, of course, build Daenerys' army even more so. Now they're just straight up part of Daenerys' army, but they're willing to work with her, of course, to just take out the Lannisters for good. So that was a pretty key development there as well. Let me see what else. Of course, there's something else I want to talk about. I'm just trying to figure out the stuff beforehand. Let's see. Daenerys, she is going to leave Daario behind to sort of lead the people in Meereen. Because she finally does realize the time is now to go to Westeros and start beginning to try and take back what she believes is hers with the Iron Throne and such. And she wants the people to sort of control themselves and take care of themselves, and she wants Daario to sort of head that. And Daario is sort of against that because he does, as far as possess a genuine love for Daenerys, but Daenerys realizes he'd basically be a liability if he went with her, and Daenerys is thinking she'll have to marry someone else to sort of draw in other alliances in the future, but she has no idea who. And we get a really good scene between Tyrion and Daenerys in this episode as well. Tyrion sort of tries to console her over what she had to do with Daario. Of course, Tyrion's terrible at it, as they both say. But it was nonetheless a touching moment between the two, and I think it was something we needed after Tyrion's mistake with the Masters in the previous couple of episodes. And Daenerys actually makes him the hand to the Queen, which is a really good moment as well. It sort of makes you think of what he went through back at King's Landing, but we can just see their bond and sort of respect for one another growing in this scene. I really appreciated it. And I just really like the acting from Peter Dinklage when Daenerys put the pin on him and such. It was really a good scene. Let's see. I already talked about Arya killing Walder Frey, which is again pretty awesome. Benjen, he sort of drops off Bran and the girl, and he cannot go any further because he is technically undead at this point apparently, and he can't go over to the wall. He describes how there's various ancient magical spells that were used to make the wall what it is and make it withstand as much as it has and be sort of like a barrier in a sense, at least to an extent. And Bran ends up having this vision, of course, going back to the Tower of Joy, continuing from where Ned had defeated supposedly greatest swordsman who ever lived, except he ended up getting stabbed in the back, if you guys remember that. But of course that's involved with Lyanna being taken and such. When he ends up following Ned to see what was actually happening up there, is something that he was warned about by a three-eyed raven previously, but he believes he's ready to see whatever it is. And then we see that Lyanna actually gave birth to Jon, which confirms a theory that's pretty much been a part of the show since it started, really. So this confirms pretty much the biggest fan theory of the whole series. And I like this because it really is another testament to Ned and sort of what he sacrificed to sort of protect Jon in a certain sense. Because if he had brought Jon back and it was known right away that he was pretty much likely a half Targaryen, half Stark, that would have put Robert off because of what happened with him, Lyanna, and of course the Targaryen and such. I just said the Targaryen because I have trouble pronouncing the first name, but anyway. So that's a big revelation. It's sort of like the edit, as we get that revelation, we end up having a zoom out on Jon's face, which I love the music in these final scenes and such. I think it was played really well. And that big revelation, I think, someone will say, oh yeah, so we were right all along, it wasn't surprising. But I think it was a key part to the show, and finding out that Jon and Daenerys were pretty much related at this point. It's definitely going to play into the show's final future, I think. And does that mean Jon will be able to ride the dragons too? Maybe. That'd be awesome, seeing him and Daenerys riding side by side on two of them. That'd be worth it. Or even just both of them on one will be cool. So I did like that. And then we also have Jon. He is declared King of the North. Reminds you of the Robb stuff. We see how these people are rallying behind Jon, which is really gratifying to see after where season 5 left him. They all believe in him and the Starks again, and it just makes you feel good if you're a fan of the show. You've been supporting the Starks since the beginning, and now you have Jon as the King of the North. So yeah, pretty awesome. And of course that does go against what Littlefinger wants, though. But we'll see how it turns out. There'll probably be a conflict within the last couple seasons, but we'll see where that goes. But yeah, Jon, King of the North, awesome as hell. Well deserved, sir. Cersei also becomes Queen of King's Landing just as Jaime returns. And of course, Jaime, seeing the crown put on Cersei's head, he knows Tommen must have been killed. Tommen wasn't killed, what am I saying? I forgot to mention this part earlier for some reason. Once Tommen had found out what happened to Marjorie and everyone else with the faith and such, he actually jumped and killed himself. And of course, Cersei is kind of plays into the prophecy we've seen, last season, with the witch and such, saying so many of her children would die. So of course, when Jaime comes back and he sees the crown on Cersei, he figures what, something happened to Tommen, of course. And Cersei, again, in a way, I'm proud of her because of her, plan with her conquering the High Sparrow and Marjorie and such. But now, of course, this automatically puts a huge charger on her back in a collision course with the oncoming Daenerys Targaryen army. And it's set up perfectly here. I thought this was an amazing episode. And of course, we get this epic shot of all Daenerys' ships, Grey Worm, Tyrion, Varys is back with them. We see the dragons, flying overhead. A really well shot end for the season, I think. And yeah, so those are most of my thoughts on the season 6 finale of Game of Thrones. Amazing episode. In certain ways, I may have even enjoyed it more than Battle of the Bastards last week, but 2 really great episodes in a row. It definitely leaves us with plenty to think about and enjoy. But also, I just wish we could start season 7 because Daenerys finally going to Westeros. Fuck yeah! It's gonna be an amazing last couple seasons, whether they're shortened or not. We're at the end game here. I really just wish it was next year already so we could see it sooner. But yeah, let me know what you guys thought about the episode. If there's anything I didn't mention or things you want to hear more of my thoughts on, feel free to leave a comment below. Would love to talk about it more with you guys. Game of Thrones is one of the best shows out there. Along with Penny Dreadful, even though Penny Dreadful descended, the original's 100. You guys know what my favorite shows are, but Game of Thrones season 6, really good season overall. Better than season 5 in my opinion. Great finale, probably one of, if not the best finale we've had, along with season 4's The Children for me. But yeah, again, let me know what you guys thought. You can follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and look for manspoileddead.com. Catch you guys next time, and peace.